Hello everyone and welcome to DSPReacts and welcome to DSP versus the Internet episode 49 for the 28th of January 2024. Man, this was a bumpy week to say the least. Sadly, with all of the nonsensical things happening with trolling and the like, this channel was kind of at risk. I wasn't sure we were going to be able to do the show this week, but I want to say thank you to all of you who were attentive and listened to my plan to fix it. Thanks to those who upgraded their memberships to the new submissions tier so that this show would not be ruined. You know, I love watching the clips that you guys submit for me and to see, you know, it's variety every week. It's good stuff. And I'm excited to see what you came up with this week. I didn't want this show to end simply because of idiotic trolls, and I'm glad it's not. The show goes on as planned, as normal. No issue. I'm excited for that. I hope you guys are too. I thank you all for being here live and for those watching on demand. Remember the way the show works. We start off with ultra member submissions, meaning people who are the toppest level of supporter on this channel, the highest, will be guaranteed to get one clip watched a week, and we're about to watch those right now. Then we go to the standard member submissions, which are thrown into a randomized playlist, and we watch those. And basically, we had to change it this week because of all these fake gifted memberships. The way it works now is that you have to be a submissions tier member. There's now a new tier of membership on the channel, and that avoids these troll gifted memberships from affecting the show and having too many people being able to submit clips and flooding the show and making it unmanageable. So thank you to those who are ultra members. Thank you to those who are super members, ask questions this week, which we'll get to in part 5. And thank you to those who have upgraded to the submissions member tier. I appreciate that as well. And hey, those of you who are standard members, thanks for being along for the ride as well. All right, we're gonna get started and see what you guys want me to watch this week. You ready? All right. So this video is interesting because there's been a debate in the gaming communities over the last many years about adult content in video games. And if you see here, when is mature content in video games okay? This has been an ongoing discussion that some games, I guess, have either been censored or some games go over the top. And the question is, you know, what do you think about that? Let's see what this person has to say, and then I'll give you my take on it. All right, here we go.
Hey everyone, Gaijin
and Goomba here.
And so games distributor Nutaku
We've watched this before, right? We've watched this guy before. Yeah.
approached me not that long ago and asked to sponsor a video talking.
Oh, I don't care about their sponsor. This is the game. We'll skip that. Okay. All right. Is this the game? This is their ad, right? All right. The argument.
Teammate does have a not safe for work version that allows you to get intimate with your playable characters as you fight alongside them and build their stats. However, this is a completely optional aspect of the game. But, you know, that actually got me thinking about something.
Okay.
It's almost like clockwork when Japan, or really any developer that makes an anime game that includes adult content, it's immediately branded as raunchy, unnecessary, and made for teenage boys to fawn over. But tell me something, guys. Why is it so easy to brand those games as indecent, but then you've got games like God of War, The Witcher, Mass Effect? All of these games have similar adult content in them, like nudity or heavy innuendos, yet we praise them as being superior games that apparently deserve endless sequels, for better or worse. I know the first thing that the opposition is going to bring up is the argument that Western RPGs have much better character development, depth, and story, which makes adult content appropriate as it's more believable, wherein Eastern RPGs have titillation and adult content because it sells better, or it appeals to the lowest common denominator. Personally, I don't think any of those three arguments actually hold any water when you start looking at Eastern games from an Eastern perspective. The argument that Eastern RPGs lack character or depth, thus adult content feels cheapened, feels like a hollow point because not everyone plays RPGs for the story. I'm dead serious. If you have a look at the more domestically popular RPGs in Japan, not JRPGs mind, because that basically boils down to Final Fantasy these days. I'm talking Japanese RPG arcade games that use stuff like collectible cards, such as Kantai Collection, which I have played by the way. From a Western standpoint, games like this are bare bones with little player involvement when it comes to actions, decision making, and movement. But from an Eastern standpoint, the two things I've noticed people really like in these kinds of games are twofold: stat building and manipulation, and the insane levels of artistic prowess these games present. Numerical strategy and...
This is so weird. I don't even know anything about this style of game. Do you guys know anything about this? It's like a card game that has stats and stuff. See, again, Japanese arcades are so different from American arcades. I've never even heard of that. So you would go there and get physical cards out of the machine and then put those into the game, and it does stat building like an RPG, but it's an arcade game. You know, again, I zero experience with that at all. I didn't even know about it.
Precision under the icing of stunning visuals is what sells in mainstream Japan. That isn't to say that no game in Japan lacks good story. We've been shown many times before that that isn't the case. But with the booming mobile market, the player preference to stat-driven games, and the cultural history of importance of visual presentation, the Eastern RPG market has eyes for very, very different concepts than the West does. This brings me to my next point, waifus. I know on the Western side of the internet we crack jokes about how baseless and goofy the concept of someone having a waifu is, but something you guys gotta understand is that entire franchises of figures, anime, games, lordy, you name it, have insane levels of popularity in Japan simply because of design and surface-level moe characteristics.
And? I get it, but what's your point? Just because it's popular doesn't mean it's good. Just because a million people throw money at it doesn't mean it's quality. You understand? And that's why I think a lot of people have issue discerning between. Just because something is popular doesn't mean that it's worth your time, but so many people want to jump on a popularity bandwagon that they just consume it, right? How many people went and saw the Transformers movies? You know? How many people went and saw every Fast and Furious? How many people go and buy Kardashian products? Do you think that anything you bought from a Kardashian is quality? Do you think they even had any insight into the product, or, you know, or they just slapped their name on a product made in China? You know, they have nothing to do. You know what I'm saying? Like, I could go on and on about things that are popular, but are not of any quality. They are meant to be exploitative of a certain audience that is easily gullible or easily led astray to think that something is good that's not. And it's designed that way. We have entire things in culture, human culture today, that are 100% meant to be exploitative of the human populace for money. And I think the argument against the waifus and all of that is that it's exploitative of people that are looking for a certain kind of content because they don't have that actual kind of stuff in their real lives. Let's continue and see what he has to say. He's literally saying, oh, but don't you understand? Even though you say it's bad, it's super popular in Japan. That doesn't mean it's good. That doesn't mean, it just means it's popular. It doesn't mean a thing. A sales number doesn't mean shit. So let's see if what he's to say here.
Frame arm girls, kimono friends, and the above mentioned Kantai collection. The story in these games and shows aren't exactly all that deep. In fact, most of the time, they're pretty quirky and almost juvenile. But nonetheless, tons, and I mean tons of people, have grown serious personal interest in these characters based on what we in the West would consider small things. There's no universal definition of what a character is required to have in order for the player to feel a deep connection to them. It's why I kind of shake my head and laugh when people say that having an attachment to a potential romantic partner like Liara from Mass Effect is fine and acceptable, but physical romantic content in a JRPG or any Eastern game is inappropriate because the characters aren't, quote, deep enough.
No, okay. So that basically is a statement that it's almost like prejudicial. So because there's a Japanese game that has an anime style character in it, right? That's meant to be exploitative of the gamer in a way, that's not good. But if you have a Western based game that has this kind of character, that's okay because it's more in depth. I don't know if I agree with that either, you know? So maybe on this case, I think that might be a statement that is kind of true, that it's the same thing. It doesn't matter if you spend 40 hours building the relationship to get to the point where it's romantic, or if it's an hour of playing and then all of a sudden it all happens. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's still the same. I don't think one's better than the other, right? Anyway.
It's honestly a matter of multinational opinion and taste. But even the argument...
No, it's not multinational opinion and taste. It's popularity. There's a difference. See, again, he's miscategorizing things, right? Just because it's popular doesn't mean it's good. It just means that it's popular for a reason. In Japan, the reason why this shit is so popular is because they have a cultural difference between America, where I live, the United States, and Japan. In Japan, they're very work-centric. They're very antisocial. They're very different. The populace of Japan is incredibly different from the populace of North America. Their whole culture is different. So to them, to spend time and money on a game with virtual girls and relationships is normalized because a lot of them don't have time in their lives for the real relationship. They're having a big problem in Japan with having people have real family units and having kids and stuff. Oh, I don't have time for that. Right? Why do you think they have a whole normalized culture of go to a cafe and pay a person to have a conversation with you and flirt with you? Even though you know that's not ever going to turn into something romantic or real, but you pay for it anyway. Because their culture is different. That doesn't mean it's good. It just means it's popular. Is it even good for humanity as a whole? I would argue no. It would be better for those people to seek out real meaningful relationships in their lives and to have a work-life balance where they can actually have a family rather than to dump a bunch of money into a waifu game and then say, well, I'm too busy to have a real woman in my life or a real man in my life. Because what do they call husbando? Is it that the male equivalent is husbando and then for female is waifu or whatever? So I feel like that's just not healthy for humanity. It doesn't matter if it's popular. It's what they do over there because their culture is different. But that doesn't mean their culture is better. It doesn't even mean their culture's okay. You know? How can you tell me that a virtual thing is better than something that's real? I just don't understand that. You know? And again, why are these games popular? Because they're predatory. Because they know that the culture's different over there. They know that the people are so heavy into work, no real time for real life. So then this is their solution. This is not a solution. This is a way for you to prey upon that populace and to get filthy rich off of sad people who don't have time for real human connections. It's fucked up in my opinion. And he's like, oh, well, you just don't understand. No, I do understand. I just don't agree with it. Okay?
That character development in Eastern games is shallow makes me laugh. Do you know how many role-playing games exist specifically to deeply develop relationships between the player and the NPCs?
And why? But why? And why is that okay? It's a fucking video game. You shouldn't be getting a deep relationship with a video game character. Have it with a real person. It's a little different.
I acknowledge there are a bunch of dating sims that have flimsy character building so the player can quickly get to the action, as it were, but there are tons and tons of games in Japan that are all about fleshing out characters the player wants to build relationships with and the development of that relationship. Like, that's the entire game. So, I have a hard time believing that just because something looks anime and has adult content, it's automatically cheap. Finally, we need to discuss the issue of lowest common denominator when it comes to these games, because this is the harshest and most unfair judgment of all. When it comes to not only gaming, but pretty much any form of media in the West, especially the United States, public acknowledgement of sexuality of any kind is shamed immediately. I mean, geez, I'm running a massive risk right now just bringing up the concept of mature content in media. I'd actually be surprised if this video doesn't get labeled as not ad-friendly. The only reason we felt like we could even do this in the first place is because it's sponsored. Now, tell me it isn't.
I guess because that was the game. That was actually smart. He partnered, he wanted to talk about the topic, and he was able to partner it in with a sponsorship, so if he gets demonetized, he still made, that was actually smart. I'll give this guy smart points on that. He did a smart thing there. That was a good one.
True. In any sort of public forum, any form of discussion on that level is seen automatically as taboo, inappropriate, and apparently completely not ad-friendly. But when it comes to violence, blood, and gore, perfectly acceptable.
This I will absolutely agree with, for sure. Why is it that extreme gore, right, is totally okay in society, but you know, every time that you get to the sexual side of things, that's bad? It's either one way or the other. You know what I'm saying? Or you find the medium. But why is it that the gore is allowed? There's so many shows on TV right now with people being beheaded, shot, murdered, cut apart, right? And they're not even like considered taboo. That's just fine. But then when it gets to anything that comes to sexual, it's like, oh my God, 18 plus, super adult. That is a weird thing, I would say, in our culture. I don't understand it. That's a head scratcher for me, that one is allowed and the other isn't. I think that they're both, it's either both or neither, not one is okay, the other isn't. They're both considered mature for adults. So, well, I don't get that.
seen as something mature, but not inappropriate in particular circumstances. Other places like Japan, on the other hand, almost uniformly censors extreme violence like graphic dismemberment, disemboweling, and intense gore. Even in some of the country's most violent scenes of popular games and shows, the graphic nature of intense violence is either inferred or artistically censored. Honestly, if you look at it from their perspective, it wouldn't be too hard to believe that we are the shallow ones taking such pronounced joy in death and violence.
Yeah.
But see, that's the thing. Neither side really has any room to judge the other because it's all about cultural perception. No matter how biologically similar we are as humans, our beliefs, morals, and culture will always define our perceptions differently. But that doesn't mean we as a species are doomed to prejudices. If we collectively could stop, listen, and think about these things from the opposite perspective, I think this would be a far smaller issue. We don't necessarily have to agree on everything. However, I think we would be far better off understanding both sides of the argument in order to find resolution. But thanks for watching, everyone.
I listen. I've said this many times too. If someone likes that kind of content, then more power to them. But I will say this, right? If you partake in this kind of mature gaming content, and that is the extent of that in your life, meaning you don't seek out a meaningful relationship with another human because you're literally spending all your time and money dumping it into that, that is sad. That, you know, you have ample opportunity to have a real life situation. There's more than enough people on this planet that there's someone for everybody. You know what I'm saying? And if you just actively choose that over the real, that's sad. I'm not going to sit here and judge anyone and say, oh, shame on you for liking your waifus and husbandos. But at the same time, at some point in your life, you would think you're going to get old enough, you're going to mature up and say it's time for the real thing, right? But at the same time, too, people who revel in the violent shit, too, I think is fucked up. Like, there's some people who are so into, like, gore and horror and stuff, and I don't understand that either. Listen, I like a good slasher flick, right? But I'm not going to sit there. My whole hobby existence is to be super absorbed in gore and horror and dismemberment and demons and monsters and fucked up satanic shit. Some people are like that, too. It's like, if everything in life, there's got to be this happy medium, right? The balance in life, moderation. And I think the problem isn't that this exists. The problem is that it becomes so predominant in certain cultures. In Japanese culture, this kind of mature content gaming is so predominant. But then it's at the expense of real life relationships, and that's the sad part of it. You know what I mean? So, you know, listen, the other thing you always, I need to say this, people should respect other people's opinions on it, all right? I don't necessarily agree with this guy, but I'm also not going to hate on him. I'm not going to call him a loser. I'm not going to be a jerk about it, right? If someone's into it, fine. If you choose not to be into it, that's also fine. Everyone should have the ability to make the decision for themselves. What irks me is that people make judgments on people based on this stuff. So don't think this guy's a loser. At the same time, don't get on my case because when I'm playing a video game, I don't feel like partaking in that kind of content. Listen, that makes me uncomfortable that I'm playing a video game and there's a romance option. Like, I don't want to do a fucking romantic thing in front of a live audience. That's weird. That would be like watching a movie, a rated R sexual movie, with family members in the room. I don't want to do that either. You know what I'm saying? So I don't want to have an audience for that. If you choose to do that stuff privately, that's fine. But understand people's choices and reasons for not partaking in content. You know what I'm saying? So don't judge people on it either. Maybe that's one of the problems. Maybe the difference is if you choose to partake in this content and you do it privately, who gives a shit? But what about people who make it all about, oh my God, look, I got fucking posters of it all over. I wear clothes with the boobs hanging out and shit, you know, on the anime character on my shirt. And it's like, what? Why is your whole life, why is your fucking anime avatar on everything you do? Like, you realize that's not who you are, right? You're not an anime. You're a real person. Time to wake up. I guess to the point of obsession, right? Sometimes these people, they think they're like virtual animated characters. No, you're not. You're not. That's not who you are. You're a real human on planet Earth. You don't live in anime land. But some people are crazy. They think they do. Okay. Let's continue. Let's see what the next video is.
Siri, what is the temperature?
It's minus 47 degrees outside.
Oh, nice.
Air temperature in Antarctica is negative 14.8 degrees Fahrenheit or negative 20 degrees Celsius. Here it is negative 58 degrees Fahrenheit or negative 47
So
degrees
this is the
Celsius.
guy that we saw at the highest elevation, correct? Is it not the same guy? So now he went to the coldest place? Did we not already see this place, but now he's going to it? I think we saw this town in yeah, in Siberia. Did we not see this? It's the frozen town.
Negative
that the
58
kids
degrees
can freeze on the way
Fahrenheit.
to
The
school.
boiling water is about 212 degrees Fahrenheit. As you see, it instantly turns into ice crystals.
The lowest air temperature ever measured in this region is negative 96.16 degrees Fahrenheit. It is as if it belongs to another planet.
Yeah, look.
A banana left outside can turn into a hammer in minutes.
People cannot wear metal frame glasses here because the metal could stick to their skin.
Right.
And if they wanted to take off their glasses, their flesh might be teared out. This is a piece of meat that looks very much like human flesh. Let's just put it in contact with metal. As you can see, these are natural gas pipes and they have to be laid above the ground because the underground is frozen with ice. There is actually a 100-foot thick mass of ice under the city. Look, this river is
Shit.
completely frozen. During the Soviet era, people who contradicted Stalin's ideas were exiled to Sakha Republic region. They were politicians, businessmen, etc. As a matter of fact, some of these people who live in Yakutsk right now are their grandchildren. So this place used to be land of exile. Today there is a city life going on. But we could call this life an ice hell.
Yeah.
It pushes the limits of human
Completely
nature.
frozen.
No matter how much we bundle up, nothing is enough to keep our bodies warm. If you have a car here, you have a big problem. Winter lasts for 6 to 7 months here, and in that time, you can never drive your car. If you insist on driving it, you can never stop your vehicle's engine. For example, the car with a running engine you can see here is empty. There is nobody inside. There are hundreds of cars like this. The reason why the engine is running, if it stops, it can be completely covered with ice and the engine oil will freeze. As you can see, the owner of this vehicle must have decided not to run his or her car for a while. Just after 20 minutes of the engine being off, it is common to give up hope. Another frozen car here, waiting to be reused next summer. This car is running, right? Let's see if there's anybody inside. Yeah, nobody. Can you
So
imagine?
I guess the question is, how would they do that? Because number one, wouldn't they run out of gas eventually, just idling their car? And would you always have the car running outside? You could never have a garage, carbon monoxide poisoning, right? So you could always have to have your car outdoors. And how the hell would you not run out of gas? It's running, you know what I mean? That's insane.
What a huge base of energy this actually is. Fortunately, Russia is a country that is quite rich in oil and natural gas resources. Even the exhaust smoke freezes. That's how cold it is. There are special covers for protection. Sometimes this is not enough too. People who can afford it keep their vehicles in a heated garage.
Ah, it's a
Because these vehicles are
special
constantly
garage.
running, there is a constant layer of exhaust smoke over the city. Range of visibility is often below 200 feet.
You can't
due
see
to the
shit.
smog.
The houses here
God damn.
have completely different architecture. The reason why the buildings are built on pillars is that the ground is covered with ice and there is a possibility of ice shift.
Old houses start to lean over after a decade or so
Crazy.
because the amount of ice either increases or decreases.
It feels like pins and needles. The worst thing that could happen is to get frostbite. Considering a refrigerator operates at about 40 degrees Fahrenheit, a freezer operates at about negative 4 degrees Fahrenheit. Since the temperature here is negative 58 degrees Fahrenheit, everywhere you can see here could function as a very high-tech freezer. That's why some people are able to store their fruits or their meat just by hanging them outside their
wow.
windows. Can I make a sled out of this?
Insane. It must always look
I
like
just
that too.
took
It's
off my
always
gloves for
endless
just a minute for
frozen
filming.
winter.
Now,
Never
it hurts
ends.
terribly. My eyelashes are frozen too. I'm trying to break the ice. Move, move.
If you would stay outside for more than 15 minutes, you would experience problems such as skin burns and difficulty in breathing. Chill that starts with a needle prick-like pain, frostbite followed by sensation loss,
Oh God.
and then it could result in death. She took off her gloves for just 5 minutes to film me. Her fingertips instantly turned white.
Our microphone is giving a red warning. It is not working properly. The camera is also not working as it should. Its cover is frozen. Our phones don't work as well.
Her battery was about 10% a couple of minutes ago, and then it suddenly died, whereas it was actually full.
What you see behind me is a cemetery. The thickness of the ice under my shoes is about 100 foot. And this ice mass under the city does not melt even in the summer. So, how do people bury the dead? They gather pieces of coal and burn them for 2 to 3 days. Once the coal is burned, the blocks of ice thaw, and it can be easily removed using shovels.
Finally, the area can be excavated to a depth of 6 to 7 feet. The body of a person who died 100 or 200 years ago can be found very robust even today.
This is a long video. It's fascinating though, right? It really is. It's like a different world. You're living on fucking the different planet. It's wild again, and we've talked about this over the last year that we've done this show. It's wild the places that people live. I just don't know why they do. Like, I don't get it. Why would anyone choose to live there? And I can get, like, people are already there and generationally you're stuck there. But why would you choose to live there? With all the hard shit. Right? And everything. Just like the highest elevation city that we saw a few weeks ago. Because they're looking for gold. Right? Oh, the hope that I'm going to strike it rich and get gold. But in reality, it's all a big scam. It's fucked up. You know, it is. Imagine being born there and being stuck there for the rest of your life. You have no means to leave. You're like, oh my God, seriously? Ugh. All right. I think this is a good place to split the part. Thank you guys for watching. DSP versus the internet. We're going to continue on with these Ultra member submissions in the next part. And thanks to everyone watching. I'll be back in part 2.